Your presence isn't a question, it's the verdict itself. The moment you walk into a room, the air shifts like a gavel striking wood. The trial has already begun, and they don't even realize it. Their eyes flicker, their breathing falters, because they feel injustice dripping from your silence, judgment echoing in your footsteps. They thought you would come begging, they thought you would come broken, but you arrived carrying the weight of silence as if it were an affidavit, every scar signed and stamped by betrayal itself. And the silence, it wasn't weakness, it was testimony, the kind that lingers longer than any witness ever could. Do you know what terrifies them the most? Not your words, not your fists, it's your shadow. Because your shadow stands taller than their excuses. Your shadow stretches longer than their lies. And in that shadow, they realize something horrifying. They already lost. Before the arguments, before the defenses, before the jury is even seated, your presence sentenced them. They tried to erase you like a name crossed out on old parchment. They buried you under ridicule, humiliation, whispers behind closed doors. They thought silence was your prison, but silence became your courtroom. And now, every step you take is an objection they cannot overrule. Listen closely. Their laughter, that was entered into record. Their betrayal, stamped into evidence. Every bruise, every scar, every time they turned their back, filed, documented, preserved. The archive of your pain is thicker than any law they ever tried to hide behind. And now, when you rise, the verdict is not debated, it's declared. You don't have to shout, you don't have to plead, you don't even have to move. Your existence has already written the judgment. Case closed before it even began. Because your presence is not just a return, it is the verdict. And the verdict is death to their illusions, fire to their masks, ruin to their lies. And they know it. That's why their hands shake. That's why their voices tremble. Because your shadow, your silent, unforgiving shadow, already sentenced them. They treated you like evidence that never mattered. A witness no one bothered to call. A name scratched out from the record. A ghost in the courtroom of their memories. They silenced you. They thought your absence was erasure. That if they signed enough papers, if they whispered enough lies, if they collected enough alibis, you would vanish into nothing but dust on forgotten shelves. But shadows never forget, and you became the shadow. They thought signatures could erase your scars. They thought laughter could overwrite your pain. They thought a single stamp of dismissal could reduce you to nothing more than a dismissed case, closed and buried. How naive, how arrogant. Because scars don't disappear when ignored. They deepen, they harden. They turn into evidence carved on the skin. Every wound became an affidavit. Every tear became a testimony. Every silence became sworn under oath. And the world pretended it was blind. They turned their heads, covered their ears, scribbled over the truth as if blotting it out would save them. But shadows see what light refuses to face. And in the shadows, every betrayal was recorded. You were erased from their stage, but the jury inside your bones kept watching. You were silenced, but your silence grew teeth. You were abandoned, but abandonment was just another witness sworn in your favor. Tell me, did they think you would stay forgotten? Did they think the courtroom of destiny doesn't keep its own archives? Their mistake was believing silence meant surrender. Their mistake was confusing absence with defeat. They thought you were done, that your story ended in the margins, discarded like irrelevant evidence. But you were never irrelevant. You were never forgotten. You were the missing page, the suppressed file, the voice waiting in the corridors of justice, sharpening its echo. And now you rise with the smirk of a villain who knows the trial has already been decided. The forgotten witness becomes the only witness that matters. The erased one becomes the verdict. They tried to erase you, but you were written deeper, not in ink, in scars. And scars don't fade, they testify. So when you return, you don't return as evidence, you return as judgment. And judgment is final, because shadows never forget, and neither do you. They thought humiliation was your end. They thought betrayal would be the final stamp, the final seal, the final ruling. But humiliation doesn't vanish. It leaves a stain. It burns itself into the record like ink spilled across affidavits. Their betrayal was not silence, it was testimony. Their laughter wasn't noise, it was evidence. Every absence, every excuse, every time they turned away from you, it was an affidavit sworn against their own souls. And the record keeps everything, every smirk, every whisper, every betrayal, dressed as friendship, all of it etched into the files of time. The archives of pain don't shred themselves. They don't vanish just because someone wishes it so. They left you to rot, as if silence would bury you. But silence was recording everything. That's what they never understood. They thought silence meant the trial was over. They thought their mockery was the verdict. They thought the world's indifference meant the case had been closed. But silence is not absence. Silence is the recorder. Silence is the court stenographer, writing down every betrayal word for word. And in that silence, you were listening. In that silence, you were remembering. In that silence, you were building the case. You became the living archive, the walking file they can never delete. The testimony they never wanted entered into the record. The humiliation they served you became their own cross-examination, their own undoing. Do you feel it now? The weight of their laughter, the sharpness of their betrayal. It lingers not as weakness, but as binding evidence. You carry it like a briefcase full of charges, each scar a page, each tear a paragraph, each betrayal a stamped signature in crimson ink. And one day, when you rise, the court will open those records, the jury will read them, and every page will scream their guilt louder than their excuses ever could. Because humiliation doesn't vanish, it calcifies. It engraves itself into memory like a verdict carved in stone. It cannot be erased, cannot be burned, cannot be rewritten. And that's why you terrify them, because they know the files exist. They know the transcripts were written in blood. They know the verdict is already sealed in your scars. Their laughter will echo back as confession. Their betrayal will testify against them. Their absence will be the affidavit that convicts them. And you don't even need to argue. You only need to stand. Because your scars are the record, and records do not lie. They thought your pain would weaken you. They thought your wounds were nothing more than scars left to fade in silence. But every wound became an exhibit. Every fracture, every crack in your soul, Every night you spent staring into darkness, it all became evidence. You were not collapsing. You were cataloging. Pain was not erasing you, it was documenting you. Filing you away, piece by piece, into a case file that would one day stand taller than their lies. They laughed as if your grief was entertainment. They mocked as if your downfall was a show. But while they laughed, you were archiving. While they mocked, you were preparing the evidence. Every betrayal, a document signed in blood. Every humiliation, a page stapled into record. Every time they abandoned you, another affidavit sealed against them. They never knew your grief was building a case file thicker than their lies. And now that file is ready to be opened. Now, those records are heavier than any excuse they can carry. They thought you were broken, but brokenness is not the absence of power. It is the proof of survival. Every fracture shows you endured. Every scar shows you refused to die. And survival itself is the most damning evidence of all. Do you see it now? Pain was never your prison. Pain was the courtroom. Pain was the judge, the jury, and the executioner quietly preparing your sentence. It was training you, sharpening you, forcing you to become something they could never imagine. Because the truth is this: the more they wounded you, the thicker your file grew. The more they mocked you, the louder your silence became. The more they tried to bury you, the stronger the roots of your evidence reached. You became the walking archive of their sins, the living proof of their betrayal. They tried to pretend it never happened, but your very existence testifies otherwise. You are the affidavit they cannot ignore. You are the cross-examination they cannot survive. And when the time comes, when the courtroom of destiny finally opens its doors, the evidence will crush them. Because pain is not a weakness, it is proof. Pain is not something to hide, it is something to present. Pain is not the end of your story, it is the record that convicts theirs. They never knew it, they never understood it. They thought pain erased you, but pain preserved you. Pain became the weapon. Pain became the evidence. And now you carry it like a briefcase, heavy, undeniable, unshakable. And when you finally set it down on their table, the sound will echo like thunder, and the verdict will already be written. They thought your silence was surrender. They thought it meant defeat, that you were too weak, too broken, too small to respond. But silence was never weakness. Silence was interrogation. While they laughed, you studied. While they spoke, you listened. Every contradiction, every inconsistency, every false alibi, they were all filed neatly into your memory. You weren't absent. You were present in ways they couldn't comprehend. Watching, calculating, writing their confessions with every slip of the tongue. They mistook your quiet for cowardice. How deliciously wrong they were. Because in silence, you saw their masks crack. You watched their so-called perfect alibis unravel thread by thread. They thought they were clever, covering their tracks with lies. But silence sees what noise hides. Silence hears what words try to bury. Silence notices the twitch, the hesitation, the smirk that lingers too long. And you smiled in the shadows, collecting it all. You became the cross-examination they never saw coming. You didn't have to ask questions. You let their own contradictions answer for them. Tell me, how long did they think their performance would hold? How many times did they rehearse the lie before the cracks showed. They strutted like kings, but their crowns were paper. They posed as saints, but their robes were stained. And every word they spoke only tightened the noose. Silence made you dangerous. Silence made you patient. Silence made you precise. And now, when the trial begins, you won't need to scream or beg or plead. You'll stand, and your silence will thunder louder than their voices ever did, because silence has been cross-examining them from the start, and the verdict is already trembling on their lips. Mock them, taunt them, let them squirm under the weight of questions you never even asked. Where were you when I bled? What excuse will you fabricate now? How many lies will you choke on before the truth finally buries you? They called your silence empty, but silence was the sharpest weapon you carried. Silence was the scalpel dissecting their excuses, the rope binding their hands, the fire burning their false testimony to ash. And now they see it. Now they know. Silence was never surrender. Silence was surveillance. Silence was the cross-examination they cannot survive, because silence doesn't forgive. Silence convicts. And then it happens. The shift. The moment when the sky no longer stays quiet. The thunder rolls like a gavel striking wood. The storm gathers above the courtroom of your life, and the air itself trembles with judgment. This is no longer silence. This is declaration. This is the storm announcing its arrival. Whether they're ready or not, you feel it. The tremor underfoot, the spark in the air. The storm doesn't whisper, it roars. And every roar is an objection, sustained by forces greater than their lies. They thought the trial would drag on forever. They thought you would be chained in the gallery, voiceless, powerless, irrelevant. But storms don't ask permission to break. Storms don't wait for verdicts. They are the verdict, and you are the storm. Every betrayal fuels the lightning. Every scar sharpens the thunder. Every humiliation becomes a wave crashing against their fragile defenses. And suddenly, their perfect courtroom collapses. The walls tremble, the ceiling cracks, the jury flees. The order they clung to is gone. The silence they mocked has turned into chaos they cannot contain. You rise, and their panic begins. Because you don't need words anymore. You don't need evidence anymore. The storm itself testifies for you. The winds scream your truth. The lightning carves your scars into the sky. The thunder repeats your name like a sentence already delivered. And their alibis, their masks, their carefully crafted illusions, the storm tears them apart, one by one, like paper in the rain. Dominoes start to fall, vault doors rattle open, secrets spill into the flood. They scramble, they whisper, they beg for order, but order is gone. The gavel has shattered. The courtroom is on fire, and the fire is you. Do you see the fear in their eyes now? The frantic desperation of those who thought they controlled the narrative. They can't silence a storm. They can't cross-examine thunder. They can't object to lightning when it strikes their lies in half. This is the turning point, the end of their trial, the beginning of your reign. The storm doesn't just announce your power, it proves it. It dismantles their excuses. It exposes their weakness. It declares the truth they tried to bury. And when the storm is done, nothing will remain but ruins. Ruins and echoes. The trial isn't theirs anymore, it's yours, and the storm is your witness. It starts with one fall, one betrayal exposed, one mask slipping, one carefully hidden lie collapsing under its own weight. And the moment it happens, the rest begins to unravel. Because lies don't stand alone. They lean on each other like fragile dominoes, trembling on the edge of collapse. And when one falls, the rest can't help but follow. You watch it unfold with a calm, villainous smile. The silence you carried, the storm you unleashed, now they begin to tip the first domino. Their perfect stories fracture. Their timelines don't match. Their alibis contradict. The witnesses they bribed begin to sweat. The foundation of their lies, once so solid, now shakes like paper towers in a hurricane. And the beautiful irony, they collapse by their own hand. Their words betray them. Their history convicts them. Their alliances, once strong, turn against each other like knives drawn in the dark. The domino effect doesn't ask permission. It doesn't slow down. Once the first one falls, the rest are doomed to crash. And with every fall, the panic grows louder. You see it in their eyes. You hear it in their stammering voices. Their defenses don't protect them anymore, they destroy them. Domino after domino, mask after mask, excuse after excuse, all collapsing in perfect sequence. And you don't even have to push, you simply watch. Because the truth doesn't need force, it only needs patience. Gravity takes care of the rest. Tell me, did they think the lies would stand forever? Did they think betrayal had no consequence? That scars left behind would never rise again? Fools. Every betrayal was a domino placed too close to another. Every humiliation stacked higher than it could bear. And now, the weight crushes them. Vaults open, secrets spill, chains break. Shadows stretch longer with every collapse, and in the middle of it all, you stand untouched, calm, collected, dangerous. The domino effect is your orchestra, and their downfall is the music. Every crash, every collapse, every scream of denial, it all plays to your rhythm, the rhythm of inevitability, the rhythm of vengeance, the rhythm of justice finally coming due. And the beauty of dominoes is this: once the chain begins, nothing can stop it. Not their prayers, not their excuses, not their frantic attempts to rebuild what was already condemned. The end is already written, the chain is already falling, and you are the one who set it in motion simply by surviving. The domino effect is theirs. The verdict is yours. Look at them now, scrambling, sweating, choking on their own excuses. The same voices that once mocked you are now stuttering, trembling, desperate to rewrite the record. Their panic is the sweetest irony, because it proves what you always knew: they were never strong. Their power was borrowed, their control was counterfeit, and now that the dominoes have fallen, they cling to ashes as if ashes can save them. They beg for time, they beg for order, they beg for a second chance. But time is no longer theirs, order no longer answers to them, and second chances are gifts they forfeited when they turned their backs on you. Watch them scramble. Watch them claw at the walls of their collapsing courtroom, trying to gather the pieces of a mask that no longer fits. Their eyes dart like cornered animals. Their hands shake like liars under oath. Their voices crack like broken gavels. And you stand still, unmoved, unbothered, unshaken. Because your power isn't in the panic, it's in the poise. You don't need to rush. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight for control. You are control. You are the verdict. Their fear grows with every heartbeat because they realize something brutal. You don't have to do anything. Your presence alone convicts them. The silence they once mocked now towers above them like a judge they cannot escape. Do you see it? Their sweat is the testimony. Their trembling hands are the confession. Their panic is the judgment written in real time. They are unmasking themselves, tearing their own defenses apart while you watch with cold patience. And here lies the irony they can't swallow. The trial ended the moment you returned. The verdict was sealed in your scars. The judgment was carved into your silence. They already lost before the first word left their lips. So you let them panic. You let them drown in the evidence they tried to bury. You let them fight ghosts in their minds while you stand steady, breathing slow, calm, dangerous. Because villains don't chase chaos. Villains let chaos chase them. And now the courtroom burns around them. Their illusions turn to smoke. Their alliances crumble into dust. Their excuses rot before they can speak them. And through it all, you remain untouchable, immovable, inevitable. Their panic is the song. Your poise is the silence that drowns it. And silence, once again, is the verdict. The courtroom shakes. The storm howls. And in the middle of it all, you rise. This is the moment they feared. The moment they denied would ever come. The moment when silence sharpens into a blade. When scars transform into judgment. When the forgotten witness becomes the final verdict. You are no longer the one questioned. You are the one asking. No gavel can silence you. No jury can ignore you. No defense can survive you. And so the final cross-examination begins. You don't need papers or files or witnesses. You don't even need words. Your very presence is the interrogation. Your scars are the questions. Your survival is the answer. Every breath you take crushes their excuses. Every step you make tightens the chain around their necks. Look at them. Watch how they tremble. See the sweat dripping, the hands shaking, the voices cracking. The ones who mocked you now stutter like guilty children caught in the act. Their perfect alibis collapse under the weight of your silence. Their airtight lies suffocate in the storm you've become. So you lean in, mocking, taunting, villainous. Where were you when I bled? Where were you when I burned? Where were you when I was erased, humiliated, broken? And they have no answer. They choke on excuses, drowning in contradictions. They stammer out words that shatter before they reach your ears. Their denial is their confession. Their silence is their guilt. Because this is not their trial anymore. It's yours. And in your trial, there are no loopholes, no technicalities, no acquittals. Only judgment, only fire, only truth. You become judge, jury, and executioner. The courtroom walls melt into shadows. The storm above cracks the sky wide open. And in that chaos you are calm, poised, untouchable. The villain they created, the anti-hero they feared, the living proof of their crimes. Every humiliation they gave you now returns with interest. Every betrayal becomes the rope that binds them. Every scar becomes the iron nail sealing their coffin. And the irony burns hottest of all. They built their own destruction the moment they tried to destroy you. You don't need to scream. You don't need to rage. Your calm is punishment enough. Your steady gaze is the blade that cuts deepest. Because nothing terrifies them more than the realization that you don't need revenge. You are revenge. And as the storm crashes, as the courtroom collapses into ruins, one truth stands unshakable. They already lost. Not because you argued better, not because you fought harder, but because you survived. Because you endured. Because your very presence in this moment is the verdict they cannot escape. And the final cross-examination is complete. The questions have been asked. The evidence has been shown. The verdict has been delivered. And you don't need to say another word, because your silence thunders louder than their pleas, because your scars speak clearer than their lies, because you are the verdict. Case closed. The storm fades, but it does not vanish. It lingers in the air, like smoke after fire, like thunder still echoing in distant clouds. The courtroom lies in ruins, the jury scattered, the gavel broken, and in the silence that follows you remain. But you are not who you were when this began. You are not the forgotten witness. You are not the broken outcast. You are not the silenced shadow. You are something else now, something forged in betrayal, sharpened in pain, crowned in fire. This is the transformation, the point of no return. They thought scars made you weaker. They thought silence made you smaller. They thought humiliation chained you to the floor. But scars became armor. Silence became strategy. Humiliation became fuel. And now you stand not as the accused, not as the forgotten, but as the untouchable, dangerous, unforgettable, unforgiving. They see it in your eyes. That steady, villainous calm. That quiet certainty of one who doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation, doesn't even need revenge. You are beyond those games. You are something greater, something they cannot define, cannot contain, cannot defeat. And that terrifies them more than anything else, because enemies they can fight, rivals they can silence, but legends cannot be erased, verdicts cannot be overturned, truths cannot be buried. You have become the legend they feared you might, the walking verdict they tried to suppress, the shadow that grew so large it swallowed their world whole. And this is the cruel beauty of your transformation. You don't need to lift a hand. You don't need to raise your voice. Your very presence is enough to haunt them, to remind them, to condemn them. They will remember you in every silence, in every scar, in every crack of thunder and every flicker of shadow. Because you are not just a survivor, you are the sentence. You are not just the wounded, you are the warning. You are not just the verdict, you are the legacy. This is the dangerous transformation. The moment when pain becomes power, when silence becomes weapon, when betrayal becomes empire, and you stand at the center of it all, untouchable. They tried to erase you, but you carved yourself into stone. They tried to bury you, but you grew roots that split the ground open. They tried to forget you, but you became unforgettable. And now you are the one thing they never prepared for. You are the verdict made flesh, and the verdict is final. So here we are. The dust has settled, the walls have fallen, the trial is done. There is no jury left to sway, no judge left to plead with, no defense left to hide behind. Only silence, only ruins, only the undeniable weight of truth pressing down on their broken crowns. And in that silence you remain, not as the accused, not as the forgotten, not as the victim, but as the verdict itself. That's the part they never understood. You didn't need to win their approval. You didn't need to change their minds. You didn't need to argue your worth. Your very existence was proof. Your very survival was judgment. Every scar, every silence, every step you took into this moment was a gavel striking down. And now, the case is closed. They already lost the moment you rose. They already lost the moment you endured. They already lost the moment your shadow fell across their lies and exposed them for what they were, cowards hiding behind paper shields. The courtroom of destiny has no appeals. The verdict cannot be overturned. The record cannot be erased. And you don't need applause. You don't need forgiveness. You don't need mercy. You only need the echo of this truth. Your presence is the verdict, and the verdict is final. Case closed.